Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the GTHub podcast for another fun-filled week of banter and entertainment, and possibly some news that you may or may not have heard already. We are joined by a different cast of characters this week, but joining us once again is Rob.
Hello.
And returning is an old guest to the show. Say hello, everyone, to Josh.
Hello. I don't think I've ever been called old before. That's a first. But yeah, welcome. I feel welcomed. Good to be back.
Yes, Grandpa.
Okay.
There, now
Goodness
you've been
gracious.
officially called old. Yeah. But today's packed, information-laden show. We have the championship wrap-up from Sonoma with the IndyCar series. All the news that has fallen from there and around that. We'll do some Super GT, some ELMS news from the wet thing that was the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. The support series, the Michelin Cup. The madness that was GT Masters, that we'll briefly discuss. The title winners there as well. Asian Le Mans ELMS news. And Josh will regale us on some European F3 news, because we have been sorely lacking on that recently. So, yeah, packed program today.
Jolly good.
So, without further interruption, we will go to straight to the IndyCar. And well, I know Josh has seen it. I asked him if he'd seen it, but apparently Rob has been shirking his responsibilities. So,
well, my responsibilities are being a professional university student.
So you haven't seen the IndyCar, Rob?
it's a bit
I
arguable.
know roughly what's happens.
What does
Okay.
roughly mean?
Well, we have a story to tell you.
Well,
Yes.
I know for a fact that it went quite badly for Mr. Alexander Rossi. And thanks to NASCAR, we may or may not have actually seen that.
Oh, dearie me. Yes.
Yes,
It
because
was a...
it's, the driving round in a bloody big circle for a few hours and maybe about 10 or 15 minutes over the time it should sort of have finished, meant that
Being a bit diplomatic.
mean that quite a few people may well have actually missed the start of the IndyCar race, and those who did were then probably wondering quite early on what the hell's happened to Rossi and why the hell's he all the way down the arse end of the field.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
it was a mistake at the start. He seemed to be a bit too eager to get his championship charge underway, and as a result misjudged the back of Marco Andretti's car, clipped his front wing, basically knocked it off on the first lap, and that was that for Alexander Rossi.
Hang on, you're telling me that Alexander Rossi was being a bit too
Aggressive.
ambitious and aggressive with passes, yeah.
No, that's never happened.
That's never
before.
happened
That's
this
never
season
happened.
before.
Yeah, I'm
Ah.
afraid it did.
Only
Oh, well.
only evidence you need to point to is the brilliance that was Long Beach and his
St. Pete.
passing at St. Pete and the Indianapolis 500. Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you what, though, he's a star, that Alexander Rossi. Maybe he
not.
makes mistakes sometimes, but I tell you what, he's the one driver, or the one primary driver in the IndyCar field that you don't want to see in your rear mirrors. He is just...
Well, that or
no.
Scott Dixon. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Dixon, who actually means that the trailer for his new documentary is actually factually incorrect now, given that
Yes,
it actually
'cause
refers to him
he's
being a
just added
full-time
another
champion. and
title.
he's,
Yeah.
he's added another one. Oh dear.
That's gonna need an afterword while it finishes. Yeah.
Just have one of those little thingy arrows pointing, and then just have fifth five just scribbled in.
I tell you what, though, he didn't give up there, Alexander Rossi. He had quite an exciting comeback through the field after that point, taking advantage of safety cars for when Graham Rahal had an engine failure. But of course, there was no stopping Dixon at that point. Dixon was pretty much unstoppable. And although he didn't win the race in the end, the championship was well and truly in his hands from the start.
Well, he didn't actually need to win the race to win the championship, because all the championship implications going into the race were in Dixie's favor, because he came out of Portland with a nice enough cushion that he didn't really have to do much of anything other than be Scott Dixon. So yeah, the race happened, as Josh mentioned, at the front was basically that Alexander Rossi ran into the right rear of Marco Andretti on the initial race start. Who said this? Scrimpy. Yeah, Scrimpy said this. He ran into the right rear of him, and he had a puncture on his right front tire, which meant he had to hobble around for the entire opening lap. And that dropped him time from the start. So from the very beginning, he was fighting his way back. And thankfully had a caution with on lap 15, thanks to Takuma Sato's engine blowing up in extremely spectacular fashion. A proper engine blow up from Takuma Sato, which is kind of rare in IndyCar, actually. White smoke and everything coming from the exhaust.
So he did it properly then. Good lad.
Yeah, he was harkening back to his old F1 engine explosions.
What, Honda building exploding engines? No. Sure.
Well, they won the title. They could afford to grenade an engine. Yeah.
Grenade an engine just for a laugh.
He had an engine failure on lap 15 that brought out a caution, which allowed Rossi to catch up to the back of the field. And from there in, it was a race of him just kind of catching Dixon, really, because Ryan Hunter-Reay had the pole and took away the crucial bonus point that Rossi and Dixon needed. So that eliminated that scenario off the table all from the start, because there were convoluted schemes where if Dixon had enough bonus points and if he had scored pole and led the most laps, he could take the title by just finishing at the back, really. But by RHR taking that point, that eliminated both scenarios for Rossi and Dixon. And that pretty much eliminated Team Penske's hopes as well. So, because they were never in with a shot either. They were mathematically eligible, but really, they were so far out they weren't even with a shot. At one point in the middle of the race, they were actually eliminated entirely because there weren't enough cars retired. So, because oddly, it was a day to forget for Ray Hall and Lanigan, because Graham Rahal also fell out, which brought out another caution. Actually, no, it didn't bring out a caution. Or did it?
Are you talking about?
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Takuma Sato didn't bring out a caution. His engine just blew up.
Yes. Yeah.
The only caution that came out was for Graham Rahal stopping out on track.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What happened. Yeah. I had confused the RLL guys in my mind. It was him who stopped. But that allowed Rossi to catch up, like I said, and as a result of Graham Rahal falling out, that put the Team Penske guys back in with a shot, but then Rahal fixed his issues and came back out, so then that eliminated them again. So that was just kind of the day for the Team Penske contenders on the day. And it was a race at the front between Ryan Hunter-Reay and Scott Dixon, but because Dixie had the point lead in his hands, he just sort of played smart and brought it home second in the end, and that's really what he needed to do to bring home the title. So that's what he did.
It's a very good situation, actually, when you're racing someone for the lead and you know that they're in the lead of the championship. It's close to the end. They've got it all to lose, basically, and you haven't. I've been in that situation actually in sim racing, and it's fantastic because you can just sort of throw one up the inside and they panic and get out of your way. That's basically all Ryan needed to do. Just hold on for the lead. Dixon wasn't exactly going to attack, and quite rightfully so. Ryan did all he needed to. Dixon did all he needed to. Win-win.
But did you then reverse into your teammate on the grid?
No, that was last year.
We're never going to let you forget that. Just to let you know.
I don't want to forget it. It was funny.
It's in much the same way that Forza will never let me forget about, well, anything which involves doors, but there we go.
Oh, what happened with the doors? I haven't heard this story.
We will regale you with this a bit later. Yeah,
Of course, yeah.
Well, at least one of them.
a bit of a mess.
All right. Back to the racing.
Yeah, it was the last race at Sonoma. Yay.
Well, for now it is. There is
For now.
always hopes that it'll come back, yeah. And then it'll be a Northern California swing where it possibly can come back. Which would probably be very nice, considering the racing actually wasn't that bad on the last outing at Sonoma with the new aero kit. It wasn't great passing, but there was action, particularly if you were Santino Ferrucci and Jordan King. Yeah.
Another thing to mention is a brand new driver we had in the IndyCar series, actually, Pat Patricio, to give him his full first name, who qualified in the top 6 on his debut in an IndyCar. He'd only driven the car for the very first time in free practice, took it out in qualifying, and stuck it in the top 6. And I tell you what, that takes some skill.
Well,
That
then
wasn't
again,
the first time he had driven the car, because
he tested it.
coming into the weekend, the Harding Racing guys had 2 cars, one for Pato Award and one for Colton Herta, who were both teammates in an Indy Lights. And they were testing the week before.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There was a private test the week before that. And then the Thursday, there was a promoter test. But
I don't believe the commentators remembered that, because I'm sure the commentators said that the first time he'd driven it was on the Thursday before the race. Unless he meant the previous Thursday.
I think, was it? I can't remember who did the test. No, Colton Herta did the Thursday promoters test.
Yes.
Pato Award did the test the Thursday the week before that. That's what it was.
Okay.
The story with that actually is quite funny, because Pato Award was pretty much testing with Andretti with Andretti personnel running him, and the Andretti Autosport guys kind of engineering the Harding Racing entry for Pato Award there. And they were there for the morning, but come the afternoon at that test, the Andretti Autosport trailers mysteriously vanished, and nobody really knew why. But there's a bit of a backstory to that, because
very nice.
the rest of the teams that they were testing with were Team Penske and who else was there? I think it was Ed Carpenter Racing as well. But there was a bit of a report and a complaint to IndyCar themselves from someone. Nobody knows where the complaint came, but I think you can kind of guess it might have been coming from Team Penske guys, considering the Andretti camp had a championship contender in the Rossi, and then they were to have extra track time. IndyCar basically said in no uncertain terms, if the Andretti guys do not stop testing Pato Award's car and engineering it for them, we will count this test against you, against your allocated 3 tests in the year, and you won't be able to test on Thursday with everyone else. So they said, "Oh, okay," and then they packed up and left, leaving the Harding guys to do the testing themselves.
Nice.
So there, yeah, a bit of drama concerning that effort, but yeah, totally, the Harding entry was not an Andretti entry, even though it was.
Yeah, and also anyone who's seen Pato Award in IMSA will have known for a little while now that he is a bit quick.
Yes, definitely. Pato Award, I think he drove the PC car last year with James French, didn't he? The championship leading one that won pretty much every race.
won the championship. Yeah.
Yes, the
stunning
PC,
fashion.
the last PC championship. Of IMSA.
Annoyingly missed out on winning Petit Le Mans last year. That was the only race they didn't win.
Yes, because that car was involved in an accident. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully he can get a ride for Petit Le Mans and right that wrong, because otherwise he would not have a win at every track they visit in IMSA. Yeah, that's a bit annoying for them. For him,
Colton
rather.
Herta as well. I remember seeing Colton Herta in his very first year of car racing, or at least first. Well, no, it would have been his. Okay, never mind. Ignore that statement altogether. I saw him in 2016 when he was racing in the Euro Formula Open series in the UK. Well, in Europe rather. But I saw him at Silverstone. He actually finished second in one of those races, I believe. So I could tell then that he had potential. He's also the son of IndyCar racer and team boss Brian Herta. So he has racing in his blood, and since then he's been doing well in Indy Lights. He finished second in this year's championship, and certainly deserves that IndyCar seat. And I can't wait to see what he does with it in the future.
Well, I mean, it's Euro Formula Open. It's not really exactly the hotbed of talent, is it?
No, that's true. But I think his most impressive achievements are what he's done in Indy Lights. Third last year, second this year. He certainly is capable of an IndyCar drive. Ignore what I said about the Euro Formula Open. That was just a little anecdote. But he actually finished second in that behind Leonardo Pulcini in the championship that year. Pulcini now racing in Formula 3, GP3 rather.
I was just about to say that name means nothing to me. Yeah.
Same.
Okay. Well, whatever the case, Colton Herta's an IndyCar and he deserves to be there.
Yeah, I forgot Pato O'Ward actually qualified 5th and finished 9th. So yeah, it was a bit of a deserving finish for Colton Herta, who was 20th, but he did a solid debut race, so nothing to be ashamed about there.
Talking of Indy as well, I've heard rumours of a certain driver possibly joining the road to Indy.
A little bit on that later, actually.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, kind of jumping out a bit there.
Oh, it's fine. Rob does it all the time, so his favorite pastime is not doing things in order. Yeah.
Yes.
And
All
so
right,
die Deutsche.
Oh gosh.
We had, like I mentioned, Ryan Hunter-Reay winning the race. Scott Dixon was second, so he sealed the title there. Simone Pagenaud was 4th, and Marco Andretti was 5th. Sebastian Bourdais was 6th. Alexander Rossi came back from his problems to finish 7th, and with that was not enough to claw back any points, as he really had to win in order to even have a chance, but he didn't. So that's how that stood. Joseph Newgarden was 8th. Pato O'Ward, like I mentioned, was 9th, and Ed Jones was 10th in his final outing for Chip Ganassi Racing. Santino Ferrucci was 11th, so it was a decent day for him. And Carlos Munoz, filling in for the injured Robert Wickens, was 18th. So not representative of his pace there, but finished on the lead lap, brought it home, all wheels on the car. So all in all, good result for him and the team. But Scott Dixon wins. Chip Ganassi wins. It's Dixie's 5th title. He now equals AJ Foyt, so he becomes the only 5-time winner besides AJ Foyt in IndyCar history. It only took him about 30 years or so to do, so to someone to claim that mantle. And he's only 38 years old, so he could still win 2 more titles to match AJ Foyt with 7. Another interesting historical note came in the form of Dixie's engineers. That being Kate Gundlach, who's assistant engineer to Chris Simmons, and Danielle Shepard, who is their data engineer, and they were the first women to earn IndyCar championships from the engineering stand. So, important first there for IndyCar, and historic achievements for everyone involved at Chip Ganassi Racing over the Sonoma weekend. So it was just a lot of good racing. Unfortunately, what should have been a really nice event was marred, like Rob had mentioned earlier, by NBC having to, unfortunately, carry the entirety that was the NASCAR race from...
deathly dull driving round in circles ting.
I don't even remember where they were racing. Where was it?
That's a good start.
Actually, yeah, I don't. Was it? It was Vegas. That's where it was. It was Las Vegas. That's where the race is from.
And meanwhile, I'm dying. So
well, that's also not new. They had to cover that, so they ran, I think, right up to third way through the opening lap of the IndyCar race on NBCSN. So yeah, it was not their finest hour, and it really was. I don't understand the decision there. They should have moved the NASCAR race somewhere else if they were gonna carry the thing live. But IndyCar got preempted, so that's what happened there. I really don't understand the decision behind it, but what you gonna do, really? Next year they're gonna do well to try and prevent clashes that way, I suppose. Or just not schedule events to be running that late into the day, I guess, and run into subsequent programming. And that was the little rant that I had to do for Pigeon because he wanted to do it, but sadly he's not well at the moment. So yeah, get well, Pigeon.
Get well soon.
Get well soon, Pigeon.
Get well soon.
As Josh squeaks his note there. But yeah, we will get into the aforementioned IndyCar news. And, well, there's just lots of driver news. There's track news as well. That's a bit interesting. But first we will go with some returning drivers in the form of Spencer Pigot remaining at Ed Carpenter Racing and to drive the number 21 in 2019. Ed Carpenter returning to do the ovals in the number 20 with the road and street course driver yet to be announced, although all signs point to that possibly being Jordan King again for next season. Takuma Sato and Rahal Letterman Lanigan have signed up for another season, so that'll be his third season overall at that team. Dale Coyne and Sebastian Bourdais will also remain an item for 2019, with his engineer Olivier Boisson staying on there as well. And there's further news concerning COTA. I don't know if you'd seen what this was, Rob, but remember yes,
thinking of the Grand Prix track.
Well, they're not thinking of the Grand Prix track. It's pretty much been confirmed they're using the full circuit for IndyCar's move there. Because Jay Fry has pretty much said that those plans have been tabled and saying, quote, "I don't anticipate any changes to our using the full circuit." So, yeah, that pretty much confirms the layout for the IndyCar COTA running in March.
Now, I've heard a lot of people saying that that's a bad thing. A lot of people say that COTA and IndyCar just don't work, but I don't see why that would be, because I honestly don't think that COTA ever has a bad race, and I honestly don't think that IndyCar ever has a bad race, so surely IndyCar at COTA should be mega.
Well, it should be interesting to see, because the Aero Kit produces some fine racing. We will see how that pans out, but I don't expect any bad racing there with the new Aero Kit, because actually it would be interesting to see how fast an IndyCar can compare with a modern F1 car, considering the last time IndyCars and F1 cars use the same track was 2006 at Montreal.
Oh, golly.
Yeah, that was a very, very long time ago. And that wasn't even when it was IndyCar. That was when it was Champ Car at the time.
Yeah, did the IndyCars not go to the Indianapolis Grand Prix circuit in 2007?
It was a different layout to what the F1 cars ran. So yeah, it couldn't have been a comparison. Because in fact, the current GP circuit that they run,
it's not quite
for
what they run in F1.
So it wasn't even the original F1 track. I don't even think can be run anymore because it's been changed so many times.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no. The exact comparison for an old F1 car and an IndyCar would be in Montreal 2006. That was with Champ Car and the old Lola Cosworth V8s, and Fernando Alonso ran his fastest time at Montreal with a 1:14.726, and Sebastian Bourdais' fastest lap was a 1:20.005. So yeah, 4-second lap difference or 5-second difference. So, but that was with old cars. The modern cars should be closer, I think. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, but you have to remember that COTA is a longer track, so there's more likely to be a bigger time difference.
That's true as well. I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of pointless to compare them because they're not like for like things. So
yeah.
But that has happened with COTA. They will have spring training in early February next season, which moves over from Phoenix because Phoenix isn't on schedule anymore. But there's news that they will move the spring training test from COTA in 2020 to go to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca after they meet the required safety and infrastructure improvements prior to IndyCar's September return next season. So might be able to see IndyCars go testing. So that'd be brilliant. Hopefully that happens. Yeah. Where has Rob gone off to anyway? He's gone quiet.
I'm still here.
Oh, you're just listening. Okay.
Yes, I'm just listening because I'm just looking up the one of the other additions to the IndyCar field.
Which one would this be? Because there's 2 news items that have just broken recently.
It was Steinbrenner and the New York Yankees.
Steinbrenner.
Yes. Yes, go on, Rob. Bring that news up.
So George Steinbrenner IV.
I don't know. That's George Michael.
What is he? Some kind of king?
No, it's naming.
Okay.
And his dad and his uncle are the guys who effectively own and run a certain baseball team called the New York Yankees.
Are those George Brenner the second and third?
No, that's Hank Steinbrenner. And no, Hank Steinbrenner was their father. Oh no, sorry, Hank Steinbrenner is
Hank Steinbrenner,
chairman of the New York Yankees, and is the older brother of principal owner Hal Steinbrenner.
Okay.
But the Steinbrenners have partnered with Harding Racing, which means Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward are going to be on the IndyCar grid next year. And as a result, Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward were at a New York Yankees baseball match game recently. And
match game recently. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
A match game set. No, game set match, yeah.
And as a result, they got to throw the opening pitch. The confirmation of their IndyCar deal was done actually at the Yankees Stadium, which of all the places in America where you could actually announce your race team, that's got to be one of the cooler places. Not gonna lie.
Yes, we had the confirmation that it was indeed the combination of Mike Harding, Michael Andretti, and George Michael Steinbrenner IV. You forgot that one. Yeah. To make his name even longer. It was a combination of those 3 efforts, and it will see the team being operated out of the old Harding Racing Shop on Main Street in Speedway, Indiana. And it will be engineered by Andretti Autosports with, as you mentioned, Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta. driving for the team, with engines yet to be decided because both Chevy and Honda are still options for them. Because they haven't sat down and made that contract yet. Steinbrenner the fourth will become the youngest ever IndyCar owner in history, which is quite annoying because he's only 22 right now. So yeah.
Golly.
Hold on. 22.
Yes.
22 and running an IndyCar team.
Older than I am.
Yes.
Oh, what the fuck has happened to my life?
Well, I mean,
Seriously.
Pato O'Ward is only 18.
Oh
and
god,
Colton
it gets
Herta is only
worse.
19, I think.
Hey, Rob,
So-
fancy running an IndyCar team?
As Rob has fallen out of his chair. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
don't worry, my headset fell, never mind. The answer to that
Okay.
is no thanks. I'd quite like to make sure I get my university degree first.
Okay, and then fancy running an IndyCar team?
I could do the PR for it, I suppose, but
Okay. I could always hire myself and my brother as drivers.
no thanks. It might be a
And
little
then
bit too young.
That was the history of the
GTHub
slowest
IndyCar.
IndyCar team to ever run. Yeah.
Well, so long as all we need to do is just paint it in the old Andrea Moda livery, and we're practically
Yes.
there. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just have it sponsored by Peniston Oils. Like
Oh gosh.
Oh dear. Bringing this back on track with the Steinbrenner announcement. You missed out on one thing that wasn't actually announced and or even remotely in the announcement, really.
What was that?
The key driver who occupied the 88 for the most of the season, rather.
Oh, Gabby Chavez?
Yes, and he had a contract to race for Harding next season, but he seems to have been dropped entirely from the team because he wasn't even remotely anywhere in the releases. So he appears to have been shelved along with any Harding only entries for the foreseeable future. But we will see if he pops back up in an Indy 500 only car, but that's not looking likely. But yeah, big news for IndyCar with the marketing machine that is the Steinbrenners becoming team owners, and what was one of the most horribly kept secrets really in the paddock. So that'll be two majorly funded cars. So that adds the total of Andretti's next season to 6, I think. Because there's the 4 current ones, and then those 2. That's not even counting any extra Indy entries. So, yeah, a big chunk of the field is Andretti cars. This also doesn't affect the Indy Lights field because those 2 entries that Andretti was running will stay because they are hinting at keeping the current 4-car lineup in Lights next season. So, no worries on that front either. Stoffel Van Dorn is apparently being surfaced as well.
Which
for an IndyCar seat.
surfaced for just about anything that isn't a Formula One seat at the moment.
Well,
Yeah.
funny you say that. Yeah, he's also been rumored to be in Formula E as well.
Yeah, he's rumored.
Oh, that's amazing.
Rumored to be alongside another rumored driver in Gary Paffett, the definitely not rumored and definitely confirmed HWA, which, yeah.
HWA?
Yeah, HWA.
Who's HWA?
Basically, Mercedes' crack works team in DTM
Okay.
So I think
and
you'll find-
GT racing. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Okay.
Stoffel Van Dorn has been linked for a potential McLaren IndyCar program if it happens, which is apparently a few weeks away from being confirmed. But then it was a few weeks away from being confirmed back in Detroit. That was all the way in June. So who
it's
knows
still
where it stands at this point?
it's still a few weeks away. It's just a few months later than what they were planning.
It's a bit like the Felix Rosenquist news, really. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a matter of when it gets confirmed. But Zach Brown has also said that they could work with Honda because there are options for an HPD engine deal, so they'd be happy to work with them. So that news has changed as well. So maybe it is quite possible we see a McLaren IndyCar program in 2019 with Honda engines. So who knows, really, at this point. Whether that be Stoffel Van Dorn partnering with Fernando Alonso, who knows, really. Who knows what Fernando Alonso does in IndyCar, but he's going to do some sort of IndyCar next season.
He's going to drive an IndyCar.
Yes, very good.
The question comes down to whether it's just the Indy 500 or for the season. Yeah.
No, I reckon he's going to absolutely do the full season. He's going to fully commit to it now that he's won Le Mans. He doesn't need to do that anymore. He's going to fully commit to IndyCar until he wins the Indy 500. I don't care if he's going to do it this year or another. He will win it at some point. I'm fairly sure of that.
Yes, we'll remind you about those comments when he doesn't.
I'm sure he will, actually. I'm sure he will.
He took so quickly to it is not the worst thing, really. Yeah. He's
very, very determined.
There's two things about oval racing, Rob. If you can get it on your first try in a good car, you stand a pretty good chance of being a pretty damn good oval driver. Yeah. It's skills that aren't transferable, really. But sticking with the IndyCar news, there's also the one that literally just happened 2 hours ago with Billy Monger potentially coming over to be a Mazda Road, well, not a Mazda Road to Indy, but a Road to Indy driver, rather. Slip of the tongue there.
Yes,
yeah,
that's what...
that'd be awesome.
That's what I mentioned earlier. Billy Monger, of course, has been in the news recently because he's done a very Robert Kubica-ish thing and he set a pole position, 2 pole positions, in fact, at a track that he had his nasty accident at last time he raced there. Basically, what I'm talking about is it was his first time back at Donington Park since his accident there, where he lost both his legs. And with a specially adapted car, specially adapted controls, he's qualified pole for both of the Formula 3 races. Admittedly, the races didn't go as well for him, but he still managed to pick up a podium from one of the 3 races. So well done to him.
Podium in second race, and I think it was
in the third.
It was the second race. Yeah,
no, I believe.
I don't know how many races there are.
Yeah, I've got the results. He finished 3rd in the 3rd race after coming and 14th in the first 2.
Okay, fair enough. That's what got me confused. I thought it was only 2, and that's what I was like, oh, he didn't do too bad, but yeah. It's not a bad recovery for him, though, considering. But yeah, the thing hinges on whether he can scrounge up enough money for a European F3. Well, I don't actually know, where is he? He's British F3? Or is he
yes, he's in British F3. He's currently running
3.5.
Formula 3.5, yeah. He's currently running 6th in the championship behind Linus Lundqvist, Nikolai Kiergaard, Kush Maini, Krishnaraj Mahadik, and Tom Gamble.
Right.
And in other news, Alex Zanardi did another Ironman triathlon.
Yes, talking of people with under the average number of legs.
8 hours, 26 minutes and 6 seconds.
Golly.
And came 5th overall out of almost 3,000 athletes.
Golly.
Wow, yeah. He'll never cease to be amazing.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. I mean, just amazing.
We're talking about Alex Zanardi here, who used to be a very successful IndyCar driver until he had a very nasty accident, lost both his legs, did make a racing return, but was never quite as successful after that, but took to the Paralympics instead, won 2 Paralympic gold medals in hand cycling, and still does triathlons and Ironman athletics, and yeah, apparently he's just won another one. He's actually going back to the Daytona 24 Hours next year with BMW. So look out for.
He had some success in touring cars with his previous prosthetics. He won a couple of races, and he won an Italian GT race with Z4 GT3. So
is Mugello in the M6?
Was it the M6? I thought it was the previous one.
I didn't think he had done. But okay.
Yeah, it was the M6 back in at the end of 2016.
So it was after he did the Spa 24 then.
Yeah, it was after the Paralympics.
Right, okay.
In 2016, Rio 2016 Paralympics.
Okay, yeah, it looks like he won 4 World Touring Car Championship races after his accident, and there's no mention of an Italian GT series, but there's no mention of Italian GT at all on the page that I'm looking at, so he might well have done.
Yeah, no, he won a Italian GT race. I think it was for Roll Motorsport. Yeah, it was. And of course, this year he came back in DTM with his new, minus his prosthetics because he's got a new hand. He's got new hand controls and races with the wheel.
And has the brake lever as well, which he can use still, which means he can actually use his arm.
Brake lever, yeah.
Yeah, which means he can actually still use the muscle tension in order to actually modulate the brake, except he's using his right arm. Because DTM cars are left-hand drive, so he uses his right arm to modulate it. But so that's how that works. And he's also, like you mentioned, he has the hand throttle, the throttle ring on the steering wheel, and he also has his the obviously paddle shift gearbox, like on all DTM cars as well.
Yep. He came second. No, he came fourth in his. Fifth, okay. Fifth in his second DTM race, yeah.
Yeah, fifth in the second race.
Which, yeah, I mean, there was some attrition there to help him, but
there's
great,
more
nonetheless,
just
yeah.
Good strategy in being on the right tyres at the right time, because I actually made an exception and decided to watch that race live.
Well, that would have been me as well, yeah. I saw that race just because Zanardi was in it,
Yeah, literally. But then again, DTM at Misano this year, the racing was actually all right, in fairness.
I mean, it was dark and it had wet, and there was raining and there was no grip, so yeah.
And they had the floodlights on, so just as well there wasn't someone didn't need to pop a couple euro in the meter.
Yeah, I don't know.
The bloody lights back on, innit?
But yeah, like Josh mentioned, he will be in next January or this January's Rolex 24 Daytona with a factory M8 GTE. With his special steering wheel and hand controls, so that'll be cool to see. And with his pace, that'll probably be a rocket, yeah.
And also, because in IMSA, you're only allowed a set number of people over the wall for pit stops, am I
right? No, actually.
Oh, okay, because I know when he did Spa, they had an
extra, challenge, yeah, but
they were allowed extra people to obviously help.
Actually, I don't know if there's a set number of people over the wall limit for IMSA, but if there is, they'll handily get an exemption. So
yeah, they'll definitely. Oh, absolutely, they'll get an exemption for it.
So no
like
worries
what happened at, it was like Spa a few years back when he done that. They got dispensation to have extra people.
For pit stops, yeah. Well, there's no pit stop infringement thing for that, so. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And moving past that, we go into let's see here.
European Le Mans series?
No, I will do a brief Super GT run through because we didn't do that last weekend.
Yes, it was Sportland Sugo, and I still haven't seen the race yet, but I assume it was just like every other race at Sportland Sugo, i.e. absolutely batshit insane.
The racing wasn't insane so much as the finish was. Interesting.
Yes.
Concerning there was a safety car or a safety vehicle that was out in the middle of the track, rather questionably. It's actually a Toyota Prius. Jeez.
Toyota Prius. Jeez, fam. What, think some kind of OG?
I don't know what's called. It's G's or whatever.
I'll tell you what, if you're driving, tell you what, you wouldn't be.
No, I tell you what, that
ain't paying, fam.
That's what the racing drivers said as they drove past it. Jeez, what's that doing there?
Probably, actually.
The racing drivers, they probably would have said something vaguely along the lines of that, only with quite a lot more swearing thrown in.
Yeah, probably a couple of extra F's and C's. Yeah.
Yes.
What the fuck was that?
And we apologise for the language. If there are kids watching, then I'm joking.
We don't.
No, there
We
is no
absolutely
children.
Don't.
But the racing
I'm a
at the
child.
front- the racing at the front was pretty much between, well, not the Pulsators. The Pulsators ran away and hid in both classes because race overall was won by the number 100 Ray Brig Team Kunimitsu Honda NSX GT of one Benson Jutton and Naoki Yamamoto.
Yamamoto Naoki?
No,
as they say in
doesn't
Japan.
work that way. No,
No.
That's what they say in the driver announcements.
no.
Ah,
In English, it's Naoki Yamamoto.
oh, okay.
Or Yamamoto-san,
Yamamoto-san.
if you want. Yeah, if you want to be respectful.
Anoraks to both of you.
And to quickly
the
answer Dylan
GT500
Canton's question in the chat, sorry, is there still a GT300 Prius? Yes, there is, but not for much longer.
Okay.
Yes, they've. I think that car is actually finally going to be outlawed. Although I do believe Team APR are currently working on, well, something we don't know what yet, but it's definitely something.
It's a Supra.
Or a Haichiroku.
It's a Supra GT300, and that way everyone who's wanting the Supra to be in GT500 will have a Supra to cheer for, and then they can stop talking about the GTE car that's not happening, because it's not happening.
And that will just make the YouTube chat presumably a bit quieter for you.
Well,
and then, of course...
how did I pronounce it? Prius? Prii? I don't know. I mean, Prii is probably the plural.
I say Prius.
It is Prii from Toyota themselves.
Okay.
I don't know
Is that
why.
a bit like the plural of Lexus being Lexi?
No, those are just Lexuses.
Lexus.
Yes, Lexuses.
And if you say that the correct way, you do a very good convincing impression of Donald Trump.
Oh gosh.
You're just doing your best, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
getting back to the results before Rob just goes off on a tangent again.
Or dies.
Second in the overall, well, that would be a preferable thing, was the number 8 Arta NSX GT of Tomoki Nojiri and Takuya Izawa. And rounding out the podium was the number 12 Calsonic Team Impul Nissan GTR Nismo GT500 of Daiki Sasaki and Jan Martinborough, who took his first GT500 podium. And it was also Benson Jutton's first Super GT win, and his first win since the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix, believe it or not.
Just been waiting a little while then.
First pole position since then as well, I believe.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
I thought that was Okayama.
Was it? I don't even remember.
I think the 100 qualified on pot. I think Yamamoto-san.
If you remember, then okay,
well,
I defer to you on that one. But
that would have been his first podium since then. Maybe that's what you were thinking of.
No, I'm pretty sure Yamamoto-san did qualify that car quite high up the grid. In fact, there is an easy way to check.
Well, you figure that out, yeah. Well, they are kind of making a Supra for everything, Dylan, considering they're making a NASCAR Xfinity Series Supra. So, yeah, I think that qualifies as Supra everything. Supra-ing everything. Yeah. Is that a verb? It is now. Yeah, that was that one. GT300 was won from pole yet again by the number 61 R&D Sport Subaru BRZ. GT300 car for Takuto Iguchi and Hideki Yamauchi. It was their first win of the season. Finally brought an end to their streak of DNFs and bad runs. Was also the first GT300 JAF car win of the season, which is interesting.
Goodness gracious.
Yes?
No, carry on. Because in second place, I've just seen the name of one of the drivers who was racing the car. And I had no idea he was still racing.
And that would be...
And that would be Kazuki Hoshino. Now, Kazuki Hoshino drove in 2 Formula 1 races back in 67 well, 66. No, 76 rather, and 77.
I
Uh,
think
so-
that might be his son driving the game.
No,
Yeah.
I've checked. That is the very same. And wow, goodness gracious, he's been around the block a few times. He's still going. He's finished second in that race alongside Hiroki Yoshida. And well done for him. I want to still be that quick when I'm his age.
Suki? I guess he's right.
Oh, no, that was the Keihin NSX on pole at
He's
Okayama.
He's
so you were
71
wrong.
years old. Hold on, Kazuki Hoshino is 71 years old and just finished second in the GT300 class of a Super GT race. That's quite impressive.
Welcome to Super GT. Yeah, that's the amazing.
Welcome to Super GT. It is absolutely insane.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it was Kazuki Hoshino and Hiroki Yoshida in the Gainier 10X number 10.
Josh,
Yes?
Kazuki Yoshino, I've got him up on driver database. It says date of birth 1977.
Are you sure?
Oh.
Because
Yes,
Actually-
I'm certain. I've just copy and pasted his name off the Super GT website.
okay,
And I'm on driver database. You're talking about his dad,
I might well be.
like I said.
That would be
Oh,
Kazuyoshi
dearie me.
Hoshino.
Yes, you probably were talking about Kazuyoshi.
Interestingly, this is why you never trust Wikipedia, because Wikipedia says that it's him.
And that's
Which it
why
isn't.
Wikipedia is not recommended for Harvard referencing at university.
Absolutely,
point.
and that's why I would never use Wikipedia for anything except a silly little podcast. I just didn't think it would make a mistake on something like that. But okay, yeah, apologies.
Well, you two battle over that. It's making me immensely just laugh because, yeah.
And Hatsune Miku came third with.
No. Come on. It was
Another
the
10
number
champion.
0, Good Smile Racing with Team Ukyo.
Hatsune Miku,
Yes,
AMG.
with Hatsune Miku plastered all over it, of course.
which obviously made half the YouTube chat probably quite happy.
With Nobuteru Taniguchi and Tatsuya Karaoka finishing third. However, the race for that actually wasn't as straightforward as it might have appeared because it was a 3-wide finish for third at the line.
Yes, I have I've actually got the timings up here. So the number 0, which you mentioned, was 18.117 seconds away from the win. The number 34 Modulo Kenwood NSX GT3 for Ryo Michigami and Hiroki Otsu was 18.174 seconds from the win. And finally, the Manepa Lamborghini Huracan GT3 for Kazuki Hiramine and Marco Mappelli was 18.182 seconds from the win.
Fantastic.
Right. Yeah, it was very dead close across the line.
And Yuji Ide was a lap down in the Bentley.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yuji Ida's doing it.
It's the only place he can race.
Yes.
I had no idea. Okay.
The number 34 Modulo Drago Corsa NSX was 4th, and the 88 Manepa Lamborghini was 5th, as you mentioned. Championship implications for the race in the title hunt happened as the number 55 Arta BMW M6 scored 1 point post-race, as the number 87 Lamborghini was thrown all the way to 13th after a post-race penalty, so that gave them a crucial point to extend their point lead 7 over
The 31.
the 31 Prius, the 31 APR Prius, who crashed out. So that kept their point lead at 45. So that makes it a dead even tie for second, with the 0 moving up to third thanks to their podium. And the 65 AMG Leon AMG is 4th, 10 points back, and the number 11 Gainier GTR is 15 points back. So yeah, there's that for that one. The GT 500 points see the number 100 crew of Naoki Yamamoto and Benson Jutton On a total of 61 points and 12 points back is the number 8 Arda NSX. And in third place, who did not score any points at Sugo, is the number 100 Keeper Toms Lexus. 14 points back, and that's pretty much title hunt, really.
Yes, although it is actually a bit of a surprise to see Honda actually first and second for once in quite a long time.
Good car, finally. Yeah.
Yeah, makes a change.
As you die again. Yeah.
Well, this is to be expected. It's getting cold now. It was
Really
1
means
degree
just
Celsius
Swiss
when I
cheese.
woke up this morning.
Oh,
Oh,
goodness
dear.
gracious.
Need a warmer room is what you need. Yeah.
I've got the warmest room in bloody house, mate.
Right. Moving into more sports car news, we have the
European Le Mans series?
yes, we do.
Yes, the
And-
2.5 hours of Spa-Francorchamps.
I was going to say the reason why it's 2.4 hours is as follows. German Bite, Dogger.
Oh god, he did it. Never mind, I'm moving past him.
Veering
Yeah.
southwest, 3 showers, moderate and poor visibility. Yes, that was something akin to the shipping forecast. And yes, the weather at Spa was what Top Gear would not have described as mildly moist, but as very wet.
Yes,
That's
more
an
like
understatement.
torrential downpour, Spa 1998 times 2. Yes.
I
Yes,
think he's right with that one, yeah.
it was quite damp. The G-Drive racing drivers were using each other as surfboards.
Oddly enough, the G-Drive car, the 26 was the point leader coming into the race, and did its best to throw it off at every corner.
Yeah. Oh, I've never
and
seen
still
Christian
won.
Reed. Yeah, I've never seen Christian Reed that pissed off before.
Well, in fairness, that was a really stupid move. Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, it's
I
not
think
like
it was Jean-Eric Verne at the wheel, wasn't it?
don't know, might have been Pizzatola, I'm not sure. But then again, it's not like a G-Drive racing car has ever made a dumb move like that before on another car which is in the same class as it's fighting for the title. Fuji a couple of years ago, or a few years ago.
I would point out the more egregious move, which was Lamar. Yeah.
Yes, and
Taking
that
out
actually
the,
also involved the
oddly
Proton.
enough, taking out the Proton Porsche. Yeah. I think it
Interestingly,
was the
though.
same number too.
Yeah.
Yes, no wonder why Christian Reed was rather unhappy.
Interestingly, though, the disappointing result as well for the number 24 Racing Engineering meant that the G-Drive car has now claimed the championship with a round to go. They're only going to Portimate next time out, and G-Drive is already enough points ahead of Racing Engineering to claim the championship, and that means that the number 26, even by Andrea Pizzatola, Roman Rusinov, and Jean-Eric Verne, with
Verne
Yes.
didn't win the title. He had to skip Le Castellet due to, I think, Formula E commitments.
very
Yeah.
true. He was replaced
So it was
by
only Roman Rusinov and Andrea Pizzatola.
Yes, and apparently he was also replaced by Alexandra Imperatori. Incidentally, I didn't see that round, but that means that only Pizzatola and Rusinov will be given the championship, but effectively Verne was there with them, and the G-Drive car has been given the crown.
And also
Yes.
gets a coveted auto entry to Le Mans. So,
Very
Yes.
true.
And also happened that weekend, the Chrome Ferrari crashed into a car. Don't know if Tracy Crone was
in fairness, that wasn't Tracy Crone at the wheel. It was Nick Johnson at the wheel, and it wasn't his fault. He got brake checked by the LMP3 car there.
I was going to say,
Yes.
Tracy Crone not being at the wheel when it crashed.
No, it was Nick Johnson, and it was very much not his fault. He was
Oh my god, I am
the-
shook.
he was the innocent bystander in that one.
Makes a change, I suppose.
Wow, there's a first for everything.
Yeah, I was just about to say that actually. There is a first for everything. Yes. what else happened? Oh yeah, one of the red and white LMP3 cars went sort of
The ultimate
off a
normal
bit.
threw it off at
Yes.
I think it was turn 5.
Radion.
It
Maybe.
wasn't at Radion, it was past it.
No,
No,
which
Radion's
car are we
turn
talking-
4.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Radion's turn
past it. It was
4.
on the straight.
So that would have been at the end of Lacombe, or
Yeah,
on,
I think it was
or
at.
on the straight. Yeah.
It
He
was
didn't crash in a
somewhere.
corner. He went off in a straight line. Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhere on the track. That's
Yeah.
literally
It was a
all
very
we know.
clumsy accident, but
Yeah.
in those conditions, I don't blame him really for crashing. But that was actually the leading car at the time, I think, when it crashed. That brought up the first safety car of the day, and it wouldn't have been the last safety car of the
And
day.
that's why I didn't see it, because I was still asleep.
Yes.
Yes, I was also still asleep, but then again, I had got back from London quite late, and I had had a few pints.
That's
Okay.
not surprising, because that's just what you do.
Yes, that is literally how every tube challenge ends. A few pints, few games of darts, general good time, happy days.
But yeah, most of the race was run under safety car. It was red flagged early. To be honest, I'm surprised they green flagged it in the first place. They ended up actually
really.
starting. They actually ended up starting the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
so-
started a couple of hours early, but then again, it's sports
Yes.
car racing drivers, and sports car racing drivers are actually more used to driving in rather damp conditions than open wheel drivers, because sports car racing drivers are actually just generally tend to be a bit better in wet conditions because they're more used to it, I think.
In terms of the accident, you were trying to figure out the location of. Were you talking about the number 17 car? I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, the
It was
17
one of
Ultimate.
the red and white.
Norma.
Yeah,
that's
you were
the
a
one.
long way off. You said it crashed at turn 4 or 5. No, it was down at Fania, the complete opposite side of the track.
I couldn't see it in the wet conditions, so
Okay.
all I
Yes.
know is it crashed the straight line.
It was towards the end of the lap. It just got over the curb on the outside. The very wet white line spun it around and slammed into the barrier on the inside. Yeah, that's at Fania, which is towards the end of the lap, not towards the start.
Thank you for that one.
But yeah, that was just a case of aquaplaning, and I'm very surprised when it was that wet that the race was started in the first place. It looked absolutely, well, you couldn't see it. It was ridiculous. And the red flag couldn't come soon enough, and many cars were damaged in the process.
No, they made a good call starting the race, I think. Give
They
the
moved it
drivers
up
a
an
chance
hour,
to
so
prove
they
themselves.
ran enough to get full points. Well, half points rather, not full points. That was exactly why the 26 clinched the championship, because they didn't have their closest title contenders didn't have enough points awarded, so they couldn't actually bring the title down to Portimao because it was only half points. So that's how that ended up with that one. It was the United Autosports number 22, I think, that ended up winning that one.
Philip Albuquerque and Phil Hansen.
Yes.
Yes, in
And
fact,
they
United
also
Autosports
won LMP3 as well with
They did.
John Falb and not Sean Rahal, who's not
No.
feeling too well.
So he'll miss out on the title there.
Yes.
Yeah,
But-
it was a double win for the United Autosports team. That was John Falb and Scott Andrews replacing Sean Rahal in that car. And then GTE, or LMGTE as it is in
It's just GTE.
yeah, it is
No
just
need for
GTE.
the LM.
That was won by the number 80 EBI Motors Porsche,
EB Motors.
or
EB Motors.
Porsche, yeah. And that one was being driven by Fabio Babini, Ricardo Pereira, and Brett Curtis.
Yes, Brett Curtis, who didn't even, I think, get to turn a wheel because.
Okay, not driven by Brett Curtis.
He got points though. He got half points.
Wow. It's
Okay.
because in conditions like that, the teams are smart enough to know that it's going to be red flagged anyway.
It
So
was-
just
the
stick
car was
pros in.
primarily driven by Babini and Pera, but yeah, Pera got the lead early and didn't look back, and it was also the first win for EB Motors in the ELMS, actually.
So that means that going into the final round at Portimao, still in contention for the LMP2 Teams Championship is no one apart from the G-Drive car. That's won it. In the LMP3, it's RLR Motorsport, 360 Racing, United Autosports number 3, and Euro International. So 4 teams in contention there, and very nearly the Inter-Europool competition. They're not in contention by just 0.25 of a point. In LMGTE, or just GTE, Proton Competition Porsche, JMW Motorsport Ferrari, and Spirit of Race Ferrari are going into the final round as championship contenders. But due to the few cars in that class, it's pretty much just it's pretty much just going to be the Proton Competition Porsche unless something goes dramatically wrong for it and it doesn't finish.
Yeah, actually. So it's actually news on the ELMS front. Now that we've done the rundown of that race, concerning the schedule that's been released for both it and the Le Mans Cup.
But Penta's going to be so disappointed.
Not that it matters. He didn't bother watching the ELMS in the first place.
Yes, but it's
Why
not
is
going
that?
to be going to Austria.
Like I said, it doesn't not that it matters. He never went to the ELMS in the first place, I don't think.
Yeah, I think he went this year.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, they're off to Circuit Barcelona Catalunya for next year.
Yes, and that
the
replaces
schedule's
the
the
Red
same.
Bull Ring.
Besides that,
Apart from that, the schedule stays at Le Castellet, Monza, Silverstone, Spa, and Portimao. It's just that the round 3 has changed from the Red Bull Ring to Barcelona, which should be interesting. To be honest, I think Barcelona is probably better for endurance racing, for multi-class racing rather. But the Red Bull Ring, of course, is a well-loved track, very good for the fans. It's just an interesting change. I don't really have an opinion on whether it's positive or negative. I'm sure some people do.
I'd rather they had stayed at the Red Bull Ring because it's a nice picturesque track. I can't stand Barcelona. It's a terrible track. I hate that track. If they got rid of the chicane at the end, it would be a better track. But yeah, I don't understand why they run that chicane. It ruins that flow of that track so immensely. I hate it.
Okay.
For F1, I understand why it's there because they need to slow the cars down. They're going faster, but for a sports car, it's arguable. I don't know why they can't run it without the chicane in it. But yeah, you're probably right. I guess there was a reason why they moved it there because there was a bigger fan following, I guess, in Spain. There was a bigger sanctioning fee. I don't know. Actually, I really don't know. It's just that they're moving there.
Neither do I, in fairness.
The Michelin Le Mans Cup's moving there as well because they share the same calendar. And speaking of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, their titles were decided as well, and it was Kessel Racing that led a 1-2-3 at the weekend at Spa to claim the team's title there and to get an automatic entry for Le Mans. And it actually would be the first ever entry at Le Mans under their own name for Kessel Racing, who actually was the team who were operating the Scuderia Corsa entry when they won in 2016 in GTEM. So that was that one. And also winning a entry from the Michelin Le Mans Cup was actually no, they don't. LMP3 teams don't get an auto entry. It's only the GT team and G-Drive who have one. So never mind. They are the ones who score an automatic entry for that one. So that's how that works out. But sticking with ELMS news, we have a drive of new teams entering, or not new teams, but existing teams moving up, rather, with programs, and that being in the form of the really lovely liveried green and yellow Inter-Europol competition
Euro Interpol, or is it, or
Inter-Europol.
Interpol? Oh dear.
Might as
And
well
if
be,
you-
yeah.
And if you are on the receiving end of a phone call from Interpol, the chances are it's probably not going to be good.
They have purchased a Ligier JSP217 to run in LMP2 next season, alongside their existing LMP3 entry. So they'll have extra team of people to work on the new P2 car. RLR M Sport will move up to LMP2 with the acquisition of an ex Manor Orica 07 chassis to be running in the ELMS next season. Also, alongside their existing LMP3 program, no drivers for that one either. There is a big addition to the Asian Le Mans Series grid, though, however, that you might have read, Rob.
I probably have read and probably have forgotten in that time.
Right, okay.
Is it Pippo Durrani, Combe Ledejar, and Alex West?
Well, that's an addition, but it's not a major addition. That's not the one I was thinking of. That one he was mentioning was a Spirit of Race entry into LMP2. That was a entry. The one I'm thinking of was the additional TF Sport program for yet another series, which sees the Red River Sport by TF Sport entry.
Oh, I know who you're on about now. Ivor Dunbar.
Yes.
Bonamy Grimes.
Yes.
And the very much, definitely, absolutely 100 hired Johnny Molam.
Yes, Johnny Molam's
unretired.
Johnny Molam's Red River Sports driver development clientele coaching program thing, whatever you want to call it, has gotten an entry into the GT class, courtesy of TF Sport, who will operate their program with an Aston Martin V12 Vantage GT3. So, yet another new program Johnny Molam will be a part of, and yet another program for TF Sport to go alongside their programs in the ELMS and WC and Blancpain Endurance Cup. So, very busy they are. No rest for those guys. And I think that's just how they like it, really. But
that's how they like it.
Interesting addition for them there. And a very big get for the Asian Le Mans. That one into some more sports car racing, and that in the form of GTs actually this time.
Yes, I'm a bit interested actually. Are you talking about the International GT Open?
You could mention that. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't watch it, but if you saw it, please do.
Yes, I saw I saw bits of it. I wasn't. I kind of had it on the corner of my screen because I was really quite busy at the weekend. But it brought up a very interesting point actually that I've noticed recently, and that's that I'm a bit worried about the safety of GT cars. So I've seen recently there have been a lot of accidents where a GT car's gone off, it's hit a wall very hard, and the cockpit's deformed. And although I haven't seen any fatalities, there have been many injured drivers as a result. I'm talking about Adrian Amstutz at last year's Spa 24 Hours. I'm talking about Andy Merrick and Jurgen Krebs at this year's Spa 24 Hours. I'm talking about...
at the end of the day, though, so... I think it's
yes,
a case of what you're hitting, how fast you're hitting it, and what angle you hit it, really.
Yes, but there was another one. There was another one actually at the weekend in the International GT Open. Alan Hellmeister going off after the checkered flag, dodging to avoid everyone else slowing and going very hard into the pit wall. The trouble is that kind of hit I've seen with other types of cars. And yeah, I don't know the exact sort of angle, the exact force going through it, that sort of thing. But how many times do you see other cars' cockpits deforming? And how many times do you see it with a GT3?
I mean, I can guess how big the impact was in terms of force because it actually tore the engine clean out the front. Actually, only the second time I think I've seen that happen in a GT3 car. Previous time was Lawrence Vantor in the Blancpain Sprint Series a few years back at Misano.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a bit. Ooh.
Yeah,
But-
I've seen the photos of it.
Yeah.
I won't mention them because I don't actually particularly want to mention them. But at the end of the day, when a racing car hits a wall, it's designed to dissipate the energy, i.e., break up into loads and loads of tiny bits and pieces of carbon fiber. That's what it's designed to do. So all the
Yes.
carbon and crap you see flying off the cars, that's just energy, and that's just the car doing what it's actually designed to do.
Yes, very true. But the cockpit is designed to stay intact. The cockpit should stay intact. Everything around it should break off. With a GT3 car, too much of it breaks off, and the cockpit
that's
ends
because
up.
you're talking about something that's actually based on a road car.
Exactly. So,
Well, it's at the end of the day, GT3 cars. Okay, they've come a long way, in fairness, from when I first saw a British GT round back in 2007, when they were fairly minor modifications. Now they are actual purpose-built race cars, and the road cars are actually designed in such a way that the race car gets better with every new iteration of road car. So realistically, it's still, at the end of the day, a production car base class. Okay, we're not talking about production car in the sense of a TCR car being based off of Volkswagen Golfs and Seat Leons. We're talking at much, much, much smaller scale than that. But at the end of the day, it's still a production car. It's still based off a road car.
exactly. And that's why I think more needs to be taken into consideration for safety, because at the minute, it's just a road car going at a much higher speed. And all they've really done is stuck in a roll cage. And the actual...
No, they
the actual-
haven't. No, they have done more than that. They've got the safety hatches in the roof so that driver can extricate them once themselves.
Yeah, that's true. But
And they've also, the seats have to be to an incredibly high standard, much, much higher standard than your average road car.
my point is that if the
most
cockpit is being intruded, if the cockpit's being intruded by debris, if it's folding in on itself,
I
then
do
the
see
driver on the inside...
his point. The thing that I do understand, the cockpit itself is quite safe. But the thing they do need to look at is seriously improving the structure of the foot box itself.
Yeah.
Because that's what
It just
has
comes
been,
off.
And
Yeah, that's what's been crumpling. Yeah, the firewall and the foot
Well,
box
depends,
there, or the footwell
depends
area
really,
needs to
though,
be
in
strengthened.
fairness.
Yeah.
If it's a mid or rear engine car, then obviously just the footbox. But if the engine's in the front, like a Mercedes, like a Bentley, like a Nissan GTR, for example,
Yeah.
like the Ginetta, like the old Alpina B6 for those old gits who have long memories, and the BMW M6 for that matter.
The firewall and the footwell area, or the footbox area of GT3s need to be strengthened in some form or fashion. Because yeah, I do understand
It's
that point. Because that is something that I've noticed as well. Is the drivers walk out of these massive accidents and crashes that they have, but they get injuries to their lower extremities, and that's kind of something you need to start looking at.
Yes.
I think with Van Tor's accident a few years back, he walked out the car fine, even though he'd suffered a pelvis injury, I think it was.
Well, he didn't walk out of the car then, did he?
Well,
Alan
He was
Hellmeister's
out of the car under his own power, more or less.
Alan Hellmeister has crossed both his legs. He's got fractures to both of them. There's severe damage, and that wouldn't have happened if that had been, for example, a GT car or a Super GT car, a GT car.
That's because Super GT cars are actually based on a common carbon fiber chassis, which is not production car based.
I don't think that excuses what I've seen.
And most GTE cars technically aren't production cars anyway, even if Ford are actually counting the Lego kits, probably.
They are. Well, GTE cars are still based on road car chassis for the most part. But
even though
the safety cells themselves are differently constructed. It just depends, really. They could do more with how Super GT and how actually even Corvette does it.
With the
cars and have a carbon, foam. Carbon impact like little box that they have safety foam in on the side
is that
of the doors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it the little yellow box bits they have on the side of the doors inside the vets?
Yes, that's something that I've actually not. I have no idea why the FI hasn't implemented those, because those are really smart additions that actually only Corvette has. Corvette and I believe the Porsche has it. The RSRs have them, I believe.
I was going to say, I think you may have answered your own question there, mate. You just said it's the FIA.
Well, it's true, but they're the ones who mandate safety standards. But you'd think that they would implement them. But yeah, it's something that needs to be looked at GT3 cars.
The Americans are usually ahead on safety standards,
especially since they keep increasing speed standard, or they keep increasing speeds recently. And the crashes that we see at Spa are, they're a bit too scary for my liking, considering it was a bit touch and go for a while with the recent ones that happened at the Spa 24 in the middle of the night.
Oh, I mean, in fairness, there's a reason why a lot of the tracks British GT used to race at, like Castle Combe, like Thruxton, like Knockhill Park, they actually cannot race there anymore, literally, because the cars are now too quick. In fact, I think the last time British GT raced at Thruxton was actually 2008.
Yeah,
I think Thruxton is out of date for even touring cars. Thruxton, ignore Thruxton altogether.
Thruxton's a proper old school track, though.
Yes, but
and that's from someone who spent an awful lot of time there in the past.
You can still be an old school track with decent safety standards, and that's not what Thruxton is.
Oh yeah, Thruxton's well safe now. They've actually got a barrier going around the outside, all the way around the outside of the fastest corner. Okay, it's a bit hit or miss whether they got tyre barriers in front of the Armco, but still, at least they've actually got a barrier around the outside of it now. It's a new health and safety version of Thruxton.
I don't know.
In fairness, it is Thruxton. In fairness, well, hitting an unprotected Armco barrier is clearly preferable to hitting a blooming tree.
Yes.
Wow.
But they go through the Armco barrier.
And even then, hitting a solid Armco barrier is actually better than hitting, say, a moderately flimsy looking tyre wall and then going full on Dukes of Hazzard style into some trees. Simon Belcher knows all too well about that.
Really, you need a tyre barrier placed with this gap in between the Armco and the tyre barrier, as VIR does. And that works quite well.
Which is why VIR is a Grade 2 circuit, which means it's actually suitable for just about anything other than Formula 1, which is slightly terrifying, but then again, so is Lime Rock Park.
Oh yeah, VIR and Lime Rock are both far too highly rated in terms of safety. They're not there.
Oh, come on. Sugo's Grade 2 as well, in fairness.
Everyone just needs to put more safer barriers in. That's my... I don't understand why tracks haven't implemented them, really.
It's because, like I said earlier, the Americans are usually a bit more ahead when it comes to implementing safety standards, like safer barriers, hands devices. IMSA refusing to let Porsche bring the 956 over to America until they'd actually moved the driver's feet away from the front axle a bit.
Yes. Well, you mean not being the front axle, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, America, in fairness, does tend to be a bit ahead of everyone else when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yes, unless you're NASCAR.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, because, well, that's NASCAR. It's just a law unto themselves, really.
That was the end of my point there.
That was a bit of a safety rant, but I do see what Josh's point is. It's something that needs to be looked at.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate, as usual.
Yeah, I obviously understand.
Was the other GT3 series you were trying to bring up the ADAC Master?
Yes, the one that
yes.
I haven't
ADAC,
seen yet. But,
the ADAC Blancpain Sprint Series, only with considerably more cars and considerably more all-pro driver lineups.
how
Okay,
dare
well,
you insult it by calling it the Blancpain series? Yeah.
I'll tell
Yes.
you a little bit about that because there's actually a very funny story about that from this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, 35 cars, what can possibly go wrong? Actually, they should have a race
Yes.
at Norris Ring. That'd be...
Oh
Actually,
gosh.
that'd be carnage. It's probably
Yes,
just
it
spent the
would.
entire 1 hour behind the safety car, but never
So
mind.
there were two main rivals going into this round in contention for the title. Mathematically there were more, but going into the final round, it was between the Precoth Herbert Motorsport car and the Manfilter Team HTP Motorsport car. Manfilter got all of one corner through the final race until before Dries Van Tor decided to dive bomb them in the first corner and take them off, and that was it. Precoth Herbert were gifted the championship in the end, and the Manfilter team were not happy about that, and rightfully so. Max Goetz was in the car at the time. He was furious, and you really can't blame them for that. But I tell you what, the stewards handed out a very, very interesting penalty to Dries Van Tor. Now,
Was it writing 100 lines?
No, well, it was along those lines. without
And
searching this up, do any of you know what do any of you know what his penalty was?
Well, judging by the lines, not the kind of lines Frank Montagny was used to, I guess.
Okay, well,
which race is this? Is this
Exactly.
ADAC GT Masters Race 2.
So this was the one about the community service and thing.
Yes, what he was actually ordered to do. Yes, listen to this. What Dries Van Tor was actually ordered to do was turn up at a junior karting event with his car and give a lecture about why he was there.
I mean, in fairness, having someone like Dries Van Tor as a lecturer, as someone who spends an awful lot of time in lecture theatres at university, yeah, I'd go with that.
I tell you what, though, that is one of the most creative punishments I've ever seen in a race. Obviously, they didn't want to give him a time penalty or anything, but they wanted to show him anyway, just to sort of make sure that it didn't happen again, sort of like a warning. It reminds me of the issue with Max Verstappen in Formula One, where they basically changed the rules specifically for him. And in this, rather than doing that and creating a big hassle and a big faff around that, they've decided to humiliate the driver instead, which I think is brilliant.
I will not do this again. I will not do this again. I will not do this again. I can't be bothered.
Yeah. But yeah, Dries Van Tor trying to win the race in the first corner, didn't work, ended up taking out a championship rival. That's got to feel utterly gutting for both of them. I tell you what, if you're Dries Van Tor and you've just cost someone a championship, that must be one of the most heartbreaking things that a racing driver can experience. And for Max Goetz, even more so, because he was on his way to winning the championship and he was taken off at turn 1 by another person's mistake. That is just one of the worst things that can happen, and I feel very sorry for both of them, but less so for Dries, seeing it as it was his own mistake.
Yes, and since our Supreme Overlords would quite like us to start wrapping up now, there is quite a bit of stuff happening this weekend. For a start,
hang on, you didn't even mention who won the championship. Honestly.
Oh, sorry, that was Robert Renauer and Matthew Jaminet in the Precoat Herbert Motorsport Porsche 911 GT3 R.
There you go.
The first race was won by Marvin Kirchhofer and Daniel Kalvitz in the Callaway Competition Corvette. Second race was Sheldon van der Linde and Kelvin van der Linde in the 28 Monteplasma Land Motorsport, and you mentioned that the Precoats Herbert Motorsports Porsche 911 GT3R won the title. For Robert Renauer and Matthew Jaminet. So that was that one. I actually didn't see it, but it sounded interesting, so probably going to watch that later.
Yes.
Week, considering there's a lack of racing happening, really.
I mean, come on, there is Rensport Reunion, in fairness, which, if you, like me, happen to be into old Porsches that are in, actually, come to think of it, the vast majority of which are going to be older than myself, yeah, that's going to be well worth tuning in for. It's coming from Laguna Seca.
There's no live stream, though, is there?
Radio Le Mans are doing coverage.
Oh, okay, so it's radio coverage, all right.
It's radio coverage. I don't know sure at the moment what the extent of the coverage is going to be, but off the top of my head, but yes, there will be stuff from the circuit. There is also the there's not a lot happening this weekend. I mean, there is a fair bit. It's just nothing really that important.
There is. Hold on.
Apparently, there's an F1 race this week.
Yes, there's a Grand Prix,
which I can't be asked to watch. The WTCR Championship are going to be racing at Ningbo in China. The BTCC is ending at Brands. The SRO, whatever the hell class is racing at Catalunya for a few hours. And
Johnny Ray's probably sprint. It's the Endurance Cup this weekend.
Yes, Endurance Cup from Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya.
Oh, I didn't even know.
And Jonathan Ray is probably going to win another World Superbike title this weekend at Magny-Cours. So that's that.
Before we end this podcast, I'm going to put on my news presenter voice, rather. News preventer.
News preventer, yep, there will definitely be some prevention of news.
Yes.
One of you just say something already, honestly.
Okay, so quick fire single-seater news from Europe. Formula One has had a lot of interest recently because Kimi Räikkönen has announced he is moving to Sauber for 2019.
Yeah, we did that already. Yeah,
jolly good. I didn't know that you had done. He will be replaced by Antonio Giovinazzi.
I mean,
he will be joined by Antonio Giovinazzi in that seat, replacing Marcus Ericsson, who steps down into the test driver role.
I mean,
and lets Charles Leclerc move up to Ferrari. Meanwhile, in Formula 3, another Ferrari is on the charge, as Mick Schumacher has suddenly started winning all of a sudden. He's just got 5 Formula 3 victories in a row and has taken the lead of championship rival Dan Ticktum, who was involved in an accident with Sasha Fenestraz at the Red Bull Ring. So,
and in other news, I think the Sauber news means that Ericsson's now a brand ambassador, and like I said, there's an F1 race this weekend, but I really don't care about it.
Marcus Ericsson's been moved to the brand ambassador role for Alfa Romeo, and Giovinazzi gets the final seat at Sauber, and that pretty much wraps up the F1 pretty much.
And NASCAR are racing 500 kilometers and not miles this weekend on a road course inside Charlotte Motor Speedway. Yeah, a road course that looks like it's
not a road course; it's a roval, and
a roval that
the less said about that, the better. So no,
it doesn't look brilliant. In fairness, that's putting it mildly.
No. That's enough. Just stop. We mentioned the F1 news, so we will be signing off now. Thank you. Now that we've mentioned the lack of racing happening this weekend.
Yes, there really is not a lot. So, I suppose that's it now. Yeah. Well, I can actually finish this chewing gum off.
Oh God, that's what you were doing.
Yeah, chewing gum. Got some free chewing gum at uni.
I don't care.
The shit show that is the GTHub podcast.